Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to some of the weirdest news I've heard this season. Apparently, according to Amico Hoops, the Toronto Raptors have high interest in Tristan Thompson. Now, Ryker, before we break down, because we're both in agreement, this is a very weird report. We're not very high on this one. Apparently, Amico Hoops hasn't been the most reliable of sources. He is a guy that's locked in around the NBA, but you know, he has misfired on some potential sources, but it's going around Raptors news. People are talking about it, and we're going to break it down. Riker, should the Toronto Raptors go after Tristan Thompson?
Well, no, and the reason that this is unreliable is because it's absolute garbage. Nobody in their right mind would ever trade anybody on the roster, on the Toronto Raptors roster for Tristan Thompson. He's having a career year. I'll put that as the caveat. But Ben, you can break down what the obvious reasons are that we would never get rid of anybody for this man.
Well, the Toronto Raptors, firstly, Tristan Thompson is the center. He's a homegrown Canadian guy. We'll put out his resume a little bit. He has had a pretty substantial career. He's played for the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James. He's made to the finals a few times. He's an NBA champion. He has had some nice finals appearances. That was particularly in their first two stints, when you remember that series where LeBron went off with Dellavedova and Tristan Thompson, and then the year, obviously, they won the championship. Tristan Thompson played well in those series, but the last two he played in didn't really show up that much. He's a guy, he's a brute underneath the rim. He gets a lot of rebounds. He's known for notoriously crashing the glass. He can kind of finish around the rim. This year's jumper has expanded out a little bit, not obviously to the point where he's a stretch five, even like Ibaka or something like that. You know, he's still very much a player that plays underneath the rim, but it really doesn't make sense for the Toronto Raptors to pick him up. We have Marc Gasol right now. We have Serge Ibaka. We have Chris Boucher as a third-string center who can play if one of those guys get injured. Riker, I'm including Chris Boucher in this question I'm going to throw at you. Would you rather Tristan Thompson be playing over any three of those guys?
No, it doesn't really make any sense, Ben, because even Marc Gasol, who we've struggled with being on the court at times this season, at times, I won't say all of the time, but you can consider him a stretch big. At least he's taking a lot of threes, and he delivers more in his offensive complete package in terms of his court vision, his assisting. Yes, Tristan Thompson, he is, as you said, a notorious offensive glass crasher. I can't speak tonight. And he can get some of his putbacks, and he's expanding his mid-range game. But we've already had our challenges with Marc Gasol being too much of a lumbering big, right? Not being able to take some switches, being, a little bit too slow when he has to guard out on the perimeter, being a little unreliable with his jump shot. Who in this trade scenario are we willing to give up in order to bring back a guy that's really taking away from what we already have in our big mans, which is already a little bit lacking in terms of what we really want to achieve as a Toronto Raptors team? I'm unsure of how this source originated, because I can't think of a scenario where this makes sense for the Toronto Raptors.
Well, Riker, that's the thing. It doesn't. Tristan Thompson's making $18 million a season this year. It's on the last year of his contract, but that means we'd have to match that salary. And we don't, it's not like it's a salary dump or something like that, where we can give up some players. We'd have to give up like Ibaka or Gasol or Lowry, or even a couple guys like Norm and Fred. We're not going to give up any assets like that to attain a guy, Tristan Thompson, who we wouldn't even want as our third string center right now on this Toronto Raptors team. So it's very confusing. I know the Toronto Raptors have struggled with rebounding, and that's an area of concern for this Toronto Raptors team, but I don't think that's a product of our line. I think that's just how our style of play is going to be. We run a smaller unit out there, and a way to fix that is having Boucher play more power forward. That makes more sense than integrating a guy that can't shoot threes, that can't be fit within our offense to be on the floor. Tristan Thompson, I know, is a Canadian guy. I know a few years ago, a lot of people were interested. The rumor sparked up a couple years ago about the Raptors possibly being interested in getting Tristan Thompson, but the league has completely shifted away from his game right now. I know he's having a career season. That's likely due to the fact he's playing on a Cleveland Cavaliers team in the prime of his career that has no LeBron James. There's no real focal point on that team. And what does this say about the Toronto Raptors right now that even these rumors are being put out there? Is it just complete nonsense?
No, Ben, I know exactly what it says. It says something about the American media that's pegging the Toronto Raptors as the New York Knicks 2.0, a team that can be easily fleeced, or the Orlando Magic. we just recently got tapped saying that it would make a lot of sense for DeMar DeRozan to return, and obviously the response in that reaction video was overwhelming, that everybody who watches the Toronto Raptors agrees that's ridiculous. It's absurd. It would never happen. And if you're telling me that a bunch of fans, and no offense to anybody that listens to this podcast, but we are not experts, none of us, unless we're actually in the organization. If all of us can agree that it makes no sense to bring back DeMar, where obviously there's just somebody is making a big joke on the Toronto Raptors, and now to have this is adding salt to the insult, or salt to the wound here, saying that we want to accept a guy like Tristan Thompson onto the roster. It's absolutely ridiculous. If anything, if we're going to make a trade, I don't know, Ben, let me toss this back to you, because I think we're both in consensus here that Tristan Thompson doesn't make any sense. We don't need to entertain this conversation too much more. He is not a terrible player. He's a serviceable NBA big.
Yep.
He's having a career season, almost 14 points per game, but as you mentioned, it is on a struggling bottom of the league Cleveland Cavaliers team. In their best seasons, he was playing limited minutes in the playoff stretches because he was a liability and he was shooting poorly, inefficient from the floor, and they were doing the hack of Tristan where he couldn't convert on the free throw line. So, then, let me pitch it back out to you. I'm putting you on the spot. We did not discuss this before the podcast. I'm not talking about specific players, but if we had to make a trade, again, we are in the longest stretch of basketball now in NBA history since, I think, the 69 season, that there has been no trades. What type of player would the Toronto Raptors want to trade for if we were in trade talks with any given team?
That's a tough one right there. Yeah, we should have some fun with this podcast. That's the direction I want to go with it, because both of us are in agreement this isn't the move. But if the Toronto's, to be on a serious note, that if the Toronto Raptors were to make a move, I think finding some more consistent scoring on the wings, that could be an area that the Toronto Raptors look at. But the way Norman Powell has just kind of resurged himself, I think that was the thing I was looking for at the beginning of the season. If Norman Powell can continue playing like this, obviously Fred's been at this level the whole year, that might be an area we don't really need anything. I think the Toronto Raptors right now, unless we can fleece a superstar, unless Masai Ujiri can, make another trade that's just a complete blockbuster where we get a guy that's such above, something we can't really contemplate right now, I think the Raptors are well constructed to be a contending team in the Eastern Conference this year. I don't think there's any holes we really have in this team this season, except for maybe some stuff in the deep bench. And this kind of feeds into where I want to go with this, Ryker, because a player who would you rather have? When I heard this Tristan Thompson rumors, I was thinking about a guy that would be much easier to pick up in terms of value. I think we could get him for sending off a lot less value to this team. Who would you rather have, Bismack Biyombo or Tristan Thompson to be at the end of our bench right now, Ryker?
I should have known you wanted Bismack Biyombo. We can go 100 directions with trade scenarios here. We can talk about Carmelo Anthony.
Every video
talk about Terrence Ross.
Trades. I want Biz back.
We're talking about basically the same player here. It could be one of those joke memes where you say, do you want Tristan Thompson or Bismack Biyombo? And you do a side-by-side picture, and then somebody tweets out, trick question, that's two Tristan Thompsons. Or that's
but Biz willing to not... Tristan Thompson will want to be a starter. He would want to be getting minutes and all that sort of stuff. And, deservedly so. He's that type of player. But Bismack Biyombo could be our third-string center if we move Boucher down to the 4 and not complain. He could be insurance for this team and be quality insurance and not be a head case in the locker room.
All right, I need to continue on with the bit, but try to sound serious at the same time. The interesting thing is, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson could find himself in the exact same situation here if the Raptors make an impressive push in the playoffs, because obviously with these recent losses, we are now going to be dismissed by the American media. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But we're going to emerge again come playoff time. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, I don't know if he's having a career year. I don't have his stats in front of me. But he's not averaging a high points per game. He's probably in that 6 to 8 points per game range. But I could see him commanding a $10 to $15 million price ticket for playing well on a good team. That's the same place that we saw Bismack Biyombo in. But I think, Ben, you have a point here, because people might forget the electricity that Bismack Biyombo brought in the big series, making big blocks against the likes of LeBron James, being a defensive anchor, making those clutch and one shots, those offensive rebounds. I credit Hollis-Jefferson night in, night out because he's doing those things. Maybe we need a legitimate big doing those things.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree. And, this is not a bit. Every time I want Bismack Biyombo back on this roster, he unfortunately got taken from us because of that ridiculous contract the Magic gave him. But Bismack Biyombo, even though we have 2 centers on this team right now, he could be a guy that maybe kind of fits because there's reasons that this is brought up. The Toronto Raptors rebounding has just been not good in some games this season. They've really struggled, and a part of that's from going small, and that could be helped with a guy. The thing about Biz and Tristan Thompson that would be valuable to this team would be just tenacious, aggressive rebounding. I think a part of the rebounding struggles has been, you brought it up, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson has not been getting the minutes he deserves in the past few games, and the Toronto Raptors need to continue to roll out that high energy, have that sort of identity, and obviously it's going to be tough to. Biz is in the same position. His salary is super high, so I think it'd be easier because we'd be taking that salary off the Hornets' hands, and he's not going to be such an asset to that team right now. But the Toronto Raptors need to get back to that defensive role. And when I posed the question to you about why is this report coming up about the Toronto Raptors, and I think a part of that is the rebounding has been taking a little bit of a step back from the start of the season this year, and that's probably why these rumors are flying around. I'm guessing that this report, there's a score or Sportsnet, sorry. They had a report saying, I'm just pulling it up here, that some people around the team saying that the high interest in Tristan Thompson is news to them. So I doubt that this is actually going to follow through.
Yeah,
but
no way
I think I think it's an indicator that the Toronto Raptors need to go back to that more defensive.
But may I say
style.
one thing, Ben?
Yeah.
But may I say one thing? If we are really challenging the rebounding of the last 2 games, because it's hard to criticize rebounding in wins, you forget about it.
Yeah.
But in this past 2 games, we are losing the offensive rebound battle. What was the majority of shots taken in tonight and the Heat's game, right? 3-pointers, and those are long rebounds. That has nothing to do with the big. If you stick Bismack Biyombo down the block, he's not going to get a rebound on a long 3-point miss. That's the guards. They need to body up because you have guys like Austin Rivers slipping in and grabbing the offensive rebound. James Harden getting a second chance. Daniel House Jr. getting a second chance, right? That's our little guys, our wings, our guards. They need to step up. That's a big issue for the rebounding as of late. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that adding a legitimate big will really increase our chances of getting more defensive rebounds if really what we're struggling against is 3-point shooters.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. And that's why I said the Raptors don't really need any other pieces right now. We're a full, well-rounded team. The players that we would end up getting in a trade, unless it's some fleece of a superstar or a star player that Masai Ujiri can pull out, we're probably not going to make any moves. Maybe someone comes out on the buyout market, something like that. But the Toronto Raptors do have the pieces to, as you mentioned, get better at those defending those long threes, getting those long rebounds. And the key that we briefly mentioned on both the last 2 podcasts, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson has to play more. And the energy that a guy like Tristan Thompson and the one that I brought up, Bismack Biyombo, would bring, we have that on the team currently. And I think Nick Nurse needs to implement that more going forward with this team because they've shown, even Chris Boucher showed that during the stretch of games where he was out with where Serge Ibaka, was out with injury. We need to keep that high energy going. That's the way we're going to beat teams. That's a kind of our identity. It's been our identity even when we had Kawhi and even DeMar during that bench mob season. So the Toronto Raptors need to have the players, have the sets where we can use our best qualities, maximize our best qualities. And Rondae Hollis-Jefferson does that. Chris Boucher, even though his minutes are going to be regressed, does do that on the court. We need to keep that sort of energy we had to win all those games, that 6-7 game win streak we had.
Yep, and I can't disagree with you there. And I think that something is going to fold, right? We're going to figure it out. And we don't need to be in turmoil right now. And we're like I said, we're also reintegrating guys that haven't been in the win stretch at the hardest probably stretch of the entire season, right? Where we're playing all legitimate contenders. So of course it's going to be a struggle if we're losing the games. Everything is going to be an overreaction to the case, but we'll figure it out for sure.
Certainly. The Raptors are fine. We don't need to make any ludicrous trade for Tristan Thompson, but if we were to make a trade, I'd want it to be for Bismack Biyombo. But let's know who you guys think. Do you guys think the Raptors should need to make a trade after these past couple of losses? Do you think this trade for Tristan Thompson is going to happen? Let us know in the comment section below. You're the best to make us far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Ryker, any last words?
Ben, I think we should trade all of our future first-round picks for the next 15 years and get Tristan Thompson. Am I right? No?
Let us know, folks.
All right. Cheers.